Since 2020, I notice in a lot of the real estate offers that I get, people say in the inspection section that they're going to do FYI inspections. FYI inspections are for buyer information purposes only. And most of the time, this is pretty impressive because with an FYI inspection, the buyer is going to inspect and then they're either going to proceed with the transaction or ask for a release based on what the inspection reveals. You typically do not pass along inspection information in an FYI situation except for the one thing that was catastrophic that broke the deal. So FYI inspections are great, but I've noticed that a lot of people are confusing FYI inspections with just a regular full inspection period. So in Greater Cincinnati, our inspections in our contract are broken down into three parts. You have inspection completion, which is usually 7 to 10 days. And then there's a certain amount of time for any seller consideration of repairs that you ask for, normally 3 to 5 days. And then the third part is a final settlement, that final negotiation after the sellers respond. That's usually a couple of days, usually 1 to 3 days, something like that. So with FYI inspections, what I expect as a listing agent is to see maybe a 7 for completion and a 0 and a 0. That is a true FYI inspection. After we inspect, we're either walking away from this transaction or we're all in and moving forward, not asking the seller for anything. If you think someone might ask for clarification, and I like to leave that door open when I'm on the buyer agent side of things, if I think they might want clarification or maybe some money off if they find something, I'll go with a 7 days for completion and maybe a 1 for seller consideration and a 1 for final settlement, or a 7, 2, and 2. That way you leave the door open a little bit if there's a question that the buyer has, or if they may need to take some money off the price. That's a good indicator that, they may come back and ask for something. But for the crowd that does the 7, 0, and 0, truly an FYI situation, what I often find is that even if they're a 7, 0, 0, where we're moving forward or not, the agents still come back to me with some sort of repair list. And what I want everyone to understand is if you're doing an FYI inspection that leaves no seller consideration and no final settlement, that means you don't have a right to come back and ask for anything. And oftentimes, more times than not, I've got agents who do come back and ask for money off or for something else. Buyers, please understand that once you waive your right for the seller to consider and for final settlement, you're not in a true FYI situation anymore, so you don't want to close the window on those last 2 time frames. You want to make sure that there's room for you to ask the seller for something. And if you're going to do that, don't pull a bait and switch on the seller. Be serious and be straightforward, because oftentimes when you say you're not going to ask for repairs, but you come back and ask for them, the seller feels like that was a complete bait and switch on them, that it was a deception. So make sure that your inspection timeframes really are structured the way you intend them to be. Because if you tell the seller you're not going to ask them for any repairs and there's going to be no final settlement, then you are going to be facing truly moving forward with your transaction or getting released. There's no other way around if you waive your right to those last 2 time frames. So just be smart when you structure your offer. Your agent needs to understand how to structure that as well, because if you do think you might want to ask for a couple things and you've closed that door, you don't have a right to ask for them. We can ask for anything we want, but per the contract, you won't have that right. So if you have questions over this topic, which is a really interesting topic, or any other real estate related topic, you can reach out to me by phone, text, email, and private message. And if you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe. Thanks. Bye.